There are like many colleges which are on par. Like for example, given XLRI Jamshedpur itself is like on par with the old IIMs, and there are other colleges which are, I would say, just below Blackies. Like some like Symbiosis Pune, which is among the top, and
Right.
NMIMS Mumbai, and MD So such colleges as well. So I wouldn't say for a gem like the target should only be old IIMs.
Hello everyone. Today we have with us Arjun. He scored 98.24 percentile in XAT 2023 and this was his first attempt. He was a working professional and he took the XAT exam while he was working. He's an engineer and he pursued BTech from MIT Manipal. He has received a call from XLRI Jamshedpur and gave his interview. Today he's with us to share his XAT preparation journey and also give us some very valuable insight on how to prepare for the XAT and also personal interview preparation tips. All right. So hello Arjun. Welcome to Cracko interview series. And first of all, a big congratulations on cracking the XAT exam and receiving XLRI Jamshedpur call.
Hello, thank you so much for actually inviting me here to share my experience.
So yeah. So firstly, can you walk us through your MBA preparation journey, when you started your whole MBA journey and how you started preparing for the XAT?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I graduated from MIT Manipal in the year of 2021. I'm an
Okay.
as an IT engineer. So I started working in I guess July 2021. As soon as I graduated, I started working with the Swiss bank, and then later I shifted to a startup based out of Bangalore. So
Okay.
yeah, uh, I wanted to do my masters. I didn't have like much knack towards coding, so I didn't want to pursue my MS or MTech. So I stumbled upon an MBA. So I thought, like, why not prepare for an MBA while working? I did not want to stop working as well. Talking about my profile, I guess I have like an above average profile or a good profile, because my CATs are like 10 10 8, like 10
Wow,
up.
that's a very good profile, right?
Yeah, but being a general engineer male, it is okay there.
Right.
So talking about my preparation journey for my MBA, I started, I would say I actually seriously started preparing in the month of August to September. So that was pretty close, having my CAT in November and XAT in January. So that was when I actually started my preparation journey. And I actually reside in Jamshedpur, so XLRI was one of my major targets, I would say. So my
Great.
major aim was XLRI Jamshedpur, I would say.
All right. So you're an engineer and you belong to the gem category. I think being a gem itself could be a bit demotivating at times because you should do exceptionally well in the CAT and you should also have a good profile to get a call from the top IIMs. So did that ever demotivate you? And what were your other options? So what other options were you looking at to pursue your MBA dream?
What you said is absolutely true. Like being a gem, it's I would say it's extremely difficult, like for one to get into the old IMs, the blackies. So there are like many colleges which are on par. Like for example, given XLRI Jamshedpur itself is like on par with the old IMs, and there are other colleges which are, I would say, just below blackies. Like some like Symbiosis Pune, which is among the top, and
Right.
NMIMS Mumbai, MD So such colleges as well. So I wouldn't say for a gem like the target should only be old IMs. In fact, I did not perform that well in CAT. I just got like a percentile shy of 96. So that
Okay.
wouldn't give me a call from the old IMs. And in fact, I performed well in NMIMS, like NMAT and SNAP. I got a 99.4 percentile in SNAP. So I
Wonderful.
actually have converts from NMIMS Mumbai and Symbiosis Pune and SCMHRD as well. So
Okay. Great.
yeah, these are some great options as well. And given that XLRI doesn't take reservation into like that much consideration like old IMs do, or being an engineer is not like that a disadvantage when you give an XLRI interview or the XAT exam. I would say like you shouldn't be demotivated. Like once you get demotivated, I don't think you would be able to crack your like any of your exams. For example, I gave my CAT. I didn't score that well. So if I would have been demotivated, I wouldn't have cracked XAT. So I got a
Right.
98.24 in XAT, and I learned from my mistakes, like whatever I did in CAT, and I improved on them. So that's how like basically the life goes, and That's how you
Right.
pivot and perform well. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. And it's also quite inspiring how you considered other options and also how you learned from your mistakes and cracked the XAT exam and other MBA exams. So, speaking of the XAT exam, can you tell us what are the resources you used for your XAT preparation and how did you plan your entire trip? Particularly the decision making section, because that is quite challenging section in that.
True. So, like the first thing I would say for all aspirants to keep in mind is check out the exam paper pattern that comes. So, for example, CAT and XAT are, I would say, like they are pretty different. You don't have decision making in any of the competitive exams, at least that I have given. Like even MICA is, I forgot about MICAT. I actually have a call from MICA as well. So, MICAT
Okay,
is also one such exam which judges you on a completely different perspective. So, similarly, like XAT. So if you see XAT is such an exam where you are independent. You are independent to choose your time that you would be giving to each section. You have 165 minutes to complete three sections, and you can basically shift between sections and give your own time, unlike CAT where you have a fixed time interval, like where you have to give to each section. So I would say you would start by actually thinking like what are your strengths and weaknesses. For example, Quant was my strength, so
right.
I knew I would have to give Quant at the last. Towards the end I would start with verbal, I would give decision making, and then Quant. So even in pressure, if the time is less, so I would be able to do Quant. So that's because that's my strength, and that's how I did in my XAT. And as you mentioned, decision making is one of the toughest section in XAT. And thanks to decision making that I scored in well in XAT, because I have a 99 percentile in decision making. So
Wow,
that was the
great.
section, yeah, which actually gave me this percentile. So talking individually, so I heard like many people say start reading books, practicing reading novels or something like that. It helps you read, reading comprehensions. But that is such an exam where we take a reading comprehension. We don't have 4 to 5 follow-up questions like that. So we just have 1 or 2 questions, maybe like to a maximum. So you have to be pretty fast in reading. And I would say instead of reading novels, read blogs or resources which are placed online,
Okay,
because when you start reading online, you get used to it and you can automatically read like in your exam as well. But if you start reading from a book, it is it's sort of different. It doesn't match, like the reading speed might not match, the angle at which you're viewing the screen might not match. So that's one tip I would suggest. And there are few sections which have been constantly repeating in that. For example, like in fact I would say I prepared from, because gives me so many free resources. I
right.
prepared from Cracku's previous ZAT question papers, and when you have a look at it, you would notice that poems have been a repetitive question in ZAT. And
Right.
being an ICSE student, so when we used to study poems, we had something like figures of speech. So if you study figures of speech, something like metaphors, similes, like something like that, so you would actually understand what the poet wants to convey through his poem, and you would be able to answer whatever question is being asked. So that's like few tips about verbal. And like the rest of the pattern was pretty same, like correcting the sentences, punctuation, etc. So you have to
Okay.
be and sorry, prepositions as well. So you have to be pretty familiar with basic grammar rules. And one of the resources I would mention is, to get your basics strong, Ren and Martin is a great book for English
Grammar.
grammar. Yeah. And like I mentioned, like previous papers, like literally for you. And when we talk about decision making, so this is one of the sections where I've heard like many of my friends who actually flunked that because of DM. So decision making is one such section where I would say no preparation can actually get you good marks in decision making. It is just how your gut feels, how your instinct works at that moment of time. I would say I placed myself. So, for example, if a question is there where it says, okay, Mr. X is a manager and he wants to perform this. So, I would personally feel, okay, I'm the manager. What would I do at this instance? And
Okay.
yeah, so you have to choose some option where it is logically right, it is ethically right, it is socially right, it doesn't negatively impact the environment or other people. So you have to consider a lot of factors. while solving each and every decision making function, like question. Okay, so and how does this come? So this comes with practice. You wouldn't know what like exists in the mind of the paper setter. So for that reason, again, I think like I used CrackU. So in CrackU, we have, I think, by year-wise decision-making questions given in the website itself. Okay,
Right.
so I solved about 10 years decision-making questions, and I actually got to know, okay, what the examiner is expecting out of me and how should I perform. So that actually gave me the boost, and it shows,
Yeah.
right? It
Right.
shows
Right.
I got 99 percentile, so that shows how it
Exactly.
actually affected. So shouldn't stress much on decision making. So there's nothing much to prepare. So I would say it's actually the game changer of the XAT exam, where you have to just spend like very little time for that section, and do not overthink on each question. So that's something that people miss and often mess up. So that was about my decision making strategy.
Okay, you have like prepared in a very well planned manner, and so according to you, previous papers are one of the best resources out there for the decision making section, right? To prepare for the section. All right, great. All right, now moving on to the other sections. So, what was your strategy in quant and also the verbal section? So, how did you go about preparing those sections?
Yeah. So, like I said, verbal was pretty much, I mean, it was reading comprehension, poems, and basic grammar. So, I wouldn't talk about much. But again,
Sure.
like verbal, quant actually matters a lot, because unlike CAT, we don't have a different section for LRDI. In quant itself, we have data interpretation
BI
as well.
section. Right.
Yeah, DI section as well. So, I would say the first, strategy would be preparation strategy would be to know all the formula, like all the formulae, like from your 10th standard, like whatever the basic
Right.
formula. In fact, I would say I purchased this book from CrackU, which is a
Right.
formula
The
handbook.
formula book.
So I mean, they have provided us with such pages like notes. So whatever
Right.
formula you have to add, you can add them like
Correct.
beside each and every topic, because it's obviously not possible to cover each and every formula. So when I used to go through previous papers, I used to see what formula are being used and then mention them here. And
Right.
I revised this book almost, I would say, like 20 times for
Wow.
all the exams. So
Great.
I just, it just appears to me, the formula just appears to me when I see a question. And one more technique which might be used in like XAT, I would say, is estimation and smart guesses. So these are
Okay.
also some points I think which no coaching instructor would act generally advise. But as an aspirant, I would say you should make smart guesses, because given that in XAT, unlike other exams, so once you pass 8 questions, like once you
Right. There will
yeah,
be negative mark.
yeah, you have negative marking for that as well. You have a point one negative marking. So basically, the net negative marking that you're getting if you answer a question wrong after answering 8 questions wrong is 0.15. So you have to take that calculated guess. And coming to quant, even there were marathon sessions held by Maruti sir, I guess, like in CrackU itself, like spread about 4 hours, 5 hours or so on YouTube itself. So these were all free resources. So
Right.
these actually help before the exam. I used to watch these before the exam, because he used to in fact, I would say, like, do not waste time in live sessions. So go to the recorded sections, like sessions itself, after the live session is done, and watch it in 1.25 or 1.5 speed, because obviously you won't have 5 hours of time before your exam to watch a YouTube video.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to know what to watch, what to prepare, and like strategize accordingly. So that was about quant, verbal, and uh, decision making. And then we have like two more sections, right? So essay
Right.
and
Yes. Yes.
GK. So
GK.
GK is basically static and dynamic, just current affairs. So that was fine. Like, though it isn't calculated in a percentile, in your final selection, it would have an effect. And essay, again, you have a choice to, like, if you're good in English, okay, you can write it well. You have enough time to write your essays as well. So yeah, these were pretty much my preparation tips, I would say, and strategy for my XAT exam. Yeah.
All right. Now that you talked about the essay section and the GK section, like many aspirants have this doubt that how important is the essay section and the GK section? How important are these two sections in XAT, and Like what exactly are their weightages in the final interview? Like how important are they when it comes to the final selection?
So taking your questions about like GK and essay. So I would first like tell about the pattern. So you have part A and part B in that. Part A is 165
Right.
minutes, which consists of the first three sections,
Correct.
and then the next part, 15 minutes for GK and 10 minutes for your essay. And essay shouldn't be long. I don't remember the like exactly the number of
Okay.
words they should be, but it was pretty short. So your essay would have like two choices again, like one I would say like a normal essay, normal question, and one maybe related to current affairs, because this time we had, I think, approaching towards carbon zero or net zero was one of the topics. So that is
Okay.
a basic topic, and
Okay.
the weightages aren't disclosed by XLRI or like any other institution, and it actually doesn't get calculated in your total percentile as well. So this is, the secret, I would say, of XLRA themselves, and they in fact, like, they wouldn't just take it for granted, right? They would have some sort of weightage, but I guess they would be adding it to the final composite scores once the interviews are done as well. So they do have an effect, and I'm not sure about the exact percentage you
Exact.
shared.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my percentile was around 90 in GK, so I think 90 was a safe percent.
It's good.
Yeah,
Right.
and yeah, so that's about GK and essay.
Right. So now coming to the D-Day. So what was your exam strategy? Because that doesn't have any sectional time limit, so you can juggle between the sections. So how did you strategize? Like what section did you start with, and how can someone come up with their strategy?
Yeah. So that doesn't have a fixed number of questions. Like, it varies with the years. So this time it was around 70 odd questions, and you had
Okay.
165 minutes. So basically divide the time with the number of questions you have, and upwards of 2 minutes for each of the questions. And like I mentioned, like for decision making, it doesn't take much time. So once you read the paragraph, you get to
Right.
know, okay, what should be your approach. So my strategy was simple. Quant was my strength. I put it in the last. Verbal wasn't like my strength to that extent, so I put it in the beginning itself, so that I solved my paper with a fresh mind. So that was my strategy.
Right.
I started off with verbal. So I divided them into, I would say, two parts, like we have like in some books like LODs. So LOD 1 and LOD 2. So I would have a glance on my paper. I saw like what kind of questions I can attempt first. So I attempted those. I divided my time accordingly. Like, I just gave around 30 odd minutes for my quant, and the rest of the time I spent for verbal and decision making.
Okay.
And then I came back to quant again. So talking about quant, so this time I realized that data interpretation was actually difficult. Okay, so the last few questions were actually difficult, and hence you should also know like what questions you have to leave. So I
Okay.
left all the DI
Right.
questions. Okay, I left all the DI questions because I knew they were going to take time, and luckily there were two questions which were wrong in LRD, in the DI part, and so I
Okay.
got two extra like
That's
bonus points without
right.
even attempting those questions.
Wow.
So
Wonderful.
it yeah, so it actually like matters on the exam day how you approach your paper, how you see is okay. If you see this is a lengthy question, just skip it. Like, just give your more time to a question which may be from algebra, where you can actually crack it by giving a minute more. So I wouldn't say don't like I would say don't go with the pre-notioned strategy to the exam. So first have a look at the question paper and then make your strategy. But before your exam, know your weaknesses and know your strengths, at least the sections, and know the range of time you have to give for each section, and like when you have to come back to revise each one of them. So yeah.
Right. Brilliant. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I hope this strategy tips helps other aspirants as well. And yeah, now let's move on to your XLRI interview preparation experience. So can you tell us what is the selection process for XLRI Jamshedpur, and how did you prepare for the personal interview?
Yeah. So our interviews, I think, lasted between Feb and like March. So I mean, I had my BM interview. I guess like about 20 days ago. So
Okay.
just recently. So preparation was simple. As I said, I actually reside in Jamshedpur, so XLRI is
Right.
just near my house. So
Wow.
I mean, I knew
Great.
like there would be some questions coming up about Jamshedpur or about my father or about anyone. So
Correct.
I have few points, that I basically use like one more strategy would be I use OneNote as to take up my points. So my
Okay.
preparation for the interview was okay. First, have like the common hygiene questions that are asked. Why MBA? Tell me about yourself, or what's your background for, and why XLRI? So such kind of hygiene questions. And then once you get shortlisted, actually, so you get a call from XLRI. They send you a mail asking you to fill a set of questions. So I wouldn't reveal the questions. Like maybe that might make a conflict, but they are a set of questions. So like basically other colleges have it in the form of SOP. So this is also an SOP, but they have about 4 to 5 questions for each of the courses that you're applying for. Something that
Okay.
revolves around your personality and your goals.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you fill this, you have to be mindful because this is where your actual interview would revolve around if you are lucky enough. So these SOP questions for about 4 to 5 questions, which you have to, I guess, fill in about like 300 to 400 words. So these 4 to 5 questions about your personality and your goals, and so these should reflect why you're actually doing an MBA and why are you doing them in an XLRA. So you can actually include points which are specific to XLRA. So XLRA is a Jesuit institute, and moreover, I am from a school which is like a Jesuit school as well. So uh, in fact, like one interesting point is the first batch of XLRA graduated from my school. So I studied from
Okay.
Loyola School. So Loyola School was like the batch actually graduated from Loyola School when XLRA didn't have campus. I guess this was about 60 years ago. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so you XLRI is an institute which is more into sustainable development and social factors as well, because the one I think one point that I mentioned was the immersion program, the village immersion program, where you go to villages and where you actually help people. So I have an experience like working with an NGO, so I related the NGO with XLRI's mission and values. So like
Right.
while writing the SOP, you have to keep these points in mind. uh,
Correct.
yeah. And so you asked me about like your preparation strategy as well, like for the interview, right? So
Yes.
yeah, the points you have to keep in mind are like obviously your current affairs, your SOP. You have to like study, have a detailed study about the XLRA website, like their missions, their values, the specialization you would choose, maybe if they ask you, and why would you choose that. So question answers to these questions, like what companies do like come to XLRA and what roles do they recruit for? What
Right.
clubs would you be interested in and how would you actually impact the cohort? So such kind of questions you have to be well prepared with before attending any interview, not only XLRA but any interview.
All right. Now, so can you tell us what were the questions that were discussed in your interview? What were they majorly, revolving around, and so how did you tackle the questions?
So I mean, the nature of the interview was like pretty straightforward, I would say, since I had like about like by then I had about 18 months of work experience already in the IT sector itself, and I made a switch between an MNC and a startup. So, you know, so few questions obviously did revolve around that. Why the shift? Why MBA now?
Right.
Why not stay in this field itself? And so I had a panel of about like 4 to 5 interviewers, and they did ask me about my background.
Four
So,
to five interviewers.
like there were 4 to 5. Yes, I mean, I think one guy was the technician, but like the rest of them
Oh,
were
okay.
actually
But still, four panelists must be quite, you know,
yeah. So I mean, it's
yeah.
it's like highly unpredictable. So
Right.
questions did roll around of my background. Like I'm from Jamshedpur, like I mentioned. So just
Right.
fiddling about that part and about my work experience and the technical questions related to them as well. So I'm actually a BI visualization expert. So in my organization, so questions revolve
Okay.
around that and maybe a situation based question. So It is pretty generic, like it varies from person to person. But I was asked like many technical questions as well, being a computer engineer. So uh, such kind of
Right.
questions should be expected. And I mean, see, XLRI almost holds its interview towards the end. Like you would be done with your cap interviews, I would say.
Right. By
And
then, right.
yeah, your symbiosis results would have come, your NMIMS results would have come, so you pretty much know actually how to approach an interview.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, these were the pretty generic questions that were asked in the interview. But I think the major part that one should concentrate now actually on is the preparation for that. And ultimately, like, you would perform in the interview however it is.
Right. Great. So your interview majorly revolved around your work ex and also a few technical questions based on your educational background. Right. Wonderful. So you said you also you have received calls from SIBM and also NMIMS.
Yeah.
And how was the result? I hope you have I hope you have performed very well in the interview and you've converted them.
Yes, like I have converted those, like I've converted both symbiosis coding.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. So in the core program itself and NMIMS as well. So
Right.
I mean, this time NMIMS had their interviews offline. So
Okay.
Symbiosis had it online. So you have to know. I mean, it online and offline is like they are like pretty different when you're actually in front of
Right.
the panel. So I would say practice, practice. I mean, in front of the mirror, if you're actually afraid to face the panel. I am not personally. I am not. So I mean, it was pretty easy for me. But for other aspirants, like some do exist, right, who are actually have that stage fright and all. So it's not only about the interview. For example, NMM has had this Watson Glaser test and written ability test as well that we had to give it there. So they were like something revolving around critical thinking. So it's not only the interview that matters, like, finally. And so such kind of small tests, I would say, were the deciding factors in
Right.
such interviews. And Symbiosis has the process completely different. I mean, as we know, like, they have a written ability test, and then they have an interview, and they have a group exercise as well. So prepare accordingly. And I would say, like, maybe pick up a specialization that actually interests you, or you want to perform, you want to pursue in your MBA. And read about that for your interviews, because some might ask you, okay, what is your specialization that you would choose? And if I mention HR or marketing, they would ask basic questions about marketing and HR, and you have to know that. So you have to self prepare about these topics, I would say, before you step into an interview. And before you go into any college's interview, you have to know about their alumni base, you have to know about the companies that come, you have to know about the roles that they recruit you for, the clubs. So yeah, these are like some touched hygiene questions that are asked or in any such interview.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Arjun. You gave some really valuable insights on how to prepare for the XAT, and also you gave some very useful tips on how to prepare for the personal interviews. I'm sure it helps a lot of aspirants and it also inspires them to prepare well for their MBA exams.
Yeah, no problem at all. And like, I would say, just all the best to all of the aspirants. Doesn't matter if you're a gem or or like uh, not an
Right.
engineer. So don't have this notion that like a non-engineer cannot crack math. Math isn't that difficult. It is like just upwards of your 10th standard mathematics. So
Right.
I would say not to keep that notion. And if you have the right resources to prepare, and if you start in the right time, I started in August, so I like sincerely preparing in August. So even then, I was able to bring such a percentile. So I mean, it depends on your dedication, I would say, and your actual goal in life. So that's how you
Right.
get it.
Right. That is amazing. And thank you so much and all the very best for your MBA journey.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.